So Miss Princess, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good, good. We're glad to have you here with KLAZZY Magazine today. Royal Daisy Designs, did I say that correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so tell me the meaning of that. Like, what is the feeling behind that?
Okay, so Royal, because my name is Princess, of course. Daisy is actually my childhood nickname from my mom's side of the family. So yeah, I just combined my two names, and then that's how I came up with my brand. I do custom stuff, so everything is like designed and sewn by me. So.
Okay. When did you start with design, just in general?
In general, I told my mom when I was in like 4th grade that I wanted to be a fashion designer. So I'm sure she thought that was just like a phase. But then once I got to middle school, I took home ec. I learned how to sew. My grandmother and all of her sisters and my like great grandmother on my mom's side, they all actually sew as well. And my great grandmother on my dad's side. So it's kind of something that's like in my family, everybody sews. But I got to middle school, learned how to sew in home ec. From there, once I got to high school, my Girl Scout leader actually gave me like sewing lessons. So I learned how to like sew. And I used to do like me and my friends for like football games, making our t-shirts, like customizing our jeans, cutting stuff up, all that kind of stuff. From there, I went to Alabama A&M, got my degree in fashion design and merchandising, graduated in 2018, and here we are.
Wow. So what's some of the stuff you did like in high school? You say you would create the stuff for you and your friends for like games and things of that nature?
So yeah, when we would, for like the football games, like cutting up our t-shirts, my friends who played football, of course, you know, like doing their numbers on the back of our shirts or like on our jeans, doing like the puff paint and like painting our jeans and stuff like that is what I was doing in high school.
So with that, like, did you have your name on that when you were doing that?
No, I didn't have my name. Like I said, since we were just kind of doing stuff for games and stuff like that, it was more so like my friends, we would go to Walmart and get like basic t-shirts and stuff. I would like cut up all our shirts, do everybody's shirts like different, and just kind of like DIY everything.
Got you. So and I'm gonna back up a little bit. So learning how to sew, like talk to me about that experience.
So the first thing that I ever learned how to sew was, of course, a pillow, because that's what they teach you how to sew in home ec.
That's the first thing they do?
That's the first thing they teach you how to sew is a pillow.
Why is that?
Because it's really easy. It's a square. So you learn how to do like your straight lines, do your corners. It's really easy for like learning the basics of how to sew something. Even when I got to college and I had to take my sewing classes in college, we made like simple things at first. Like we made our own pin cushions and things like that because they're really small projects for people who have never like touched a sewing machine before, for them to kind of get used to the machine and learn how it works. So I learned how to do a pillow first. It was like a little, I'll say like a 12 by 12 inch pillow that we did in home ec. And then when my Girl Scout leader started teaching me how to sew, I started off doing like tote bags and stuff like that. Cause again, they're rectangles. So it's really easy to just kind of learn how to use the machine, how to like guide the fabric under the machine, and things like that. Cause those are like simple projects that you can't really too much mess up on, if that makes sense. Like it's straight lines and then a corner. So learned how to start doing tote bags. And then after that, I kind of just started doing stuff for myself. So getting on like YouTube and like watching people's like DIY tutorials, kind of like taking, so I didn't actually learn how to use a sewing pattern from the store until I got to college. Everything I did up until I got to college was me like just watching YouTube videos, or my Girl Scout leader, she would have like patterns at her house because she sewed. So like her patterns that she made, like using those patterns that she made herself. And then once I got to college, excuse me, like I said, once I got to college, that's when I actually learned how to use like the commercial patterns from the store and how to like read those. And then, of course, like as I progressed in my classes in college, I learned how to actually draft my own patterns, use the mannequin to like drape the fabric over, and create clothing that way without having to actually use a pattern, and just kind of like shape the fabric on the mannequin and cut it out and stitch it from there. So I've definitely learned like a lot of different techniques on how to do things. I know how to do things where if it's like, oh, I need to throw a dress together real quick because I need to go somewhere, I can easily just like take a dress that's in my closet, trace it, cut something out, and then just edit it from there. So like, say I just have like a plain like basic dress, I use that to cut out like the base of what I'm doing, and then I'll put it on the mannequin, like change the neckline, bring it in, cut it shorter, make a split, anything like that. But like I said, I also know how to use the patterns from the store. One of the things we did have to do when I was in college, my teachers gave us good projects. So we would have like, if we had like 4 projects that were due during the semester, one would be using a regular commercial pattern, one would be drafting our own pattern and doing it that way, taking a commercial pattern and doing some type of manipulation to it to make it your own design, and then draping it over the mannequin.
That seems like a huge jump. Like, first of all, it's amazing that you were doing a lot of this stuff before you even learned how to, I guess, use patterns the correct way, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So the way you were using patterns in high school, like how much different did that change once you learned in college?
It's not really much different. I would just say in high school when I was doing it, the patterns that I was using didn't really come with instructions. So I had to kind of like, okay, I'm going to look at this dress that I got from the store. I'm going to look at how it's constructed and put together, and kind of just figure out how to put my dress together, or figure out how to put my skirt together based on how the clothes in my closet are constructed. Versus when you buy a pattern from the store, of course, it gives you instructions. So it tells you step by step, you take this piece and you put it together with this piece, and then you take these pieces and you put them together with that piece. So it's really more so just about knowing how to read the instructions. But really, even when I use commercial patterns now, because I know how clothes are constructed, I really don't even have to use the directions. Because once a dress is a dress, a skirt is a skirt, pants are pants. Once you put it together not once, but once you put them together a couple of times, yeah, you don't really need the instructions. You kind of know the order of how to put stuff together.
So by the time you got to college, I mean, you're pretty much already advanced, I guess you could say. Like,
yeah. I'll say for the most part, myself and maybe like 2 other of my classmates already knew how to sew once we got to college. And then some of my other classmates, because my degree is in fashion design and merchandising. So those of us our concentration was in design, we pretty much already knew how to sew. And then my classmates who were like merchandising majors that really weren't looking to be designers, but they wanted to be like visual merchandisers or like buyers, those are the girls who were kind of like learning how to sew once they got there.
Oh, wow. So that kind of, so you were beyond that point.
Yeah, I already had, at least like the basics of how to sew, how to put clothes together and stuff like that by the time I got to college.
Okay. So at what point was your brand born?
I'll say 2016 is when I really established my brand, came up with the name for my brand. 2016 is when I started doing custom stuff for like people on campus. So the very, very first custom piece I did for someone who wasn't family was one of my classmates. She was doing a pageant. So I made her jumpsuit for her pageant. That was the very first like custom thing that I did for somebody that I got paid for. And that's kind of where my brand just evolved from there. And then I model as well. So like I was in a modeling troupe on campus. So I was involved in like all the fashion shows. So whenever we did shows, I was able to like showcase my brand as well as like walk in the shows and stuff like that. Any fashion shows that like the department did, like the fashion department at my school did, I was vice president and president of our Trendsetters, which is the organization for the fashion department at Alabama A&M. So I planned my junior and senior year. I planned all of our fashion shows for stuff like that. So I was just really involved with like everything fashion related on campus.
So you were the girl. Everybody knew you for that.
Yes.
So talk about that mindset, like having that first customer, official customer, paying you money before you would design stuff, and it's like, okay, it is what it is. But now when you explain that mindset of the stress that comes along with that.
I'll say it was definitely stressful because I was trying to get her jumpsuit made on top of like getting assignments done for class, like sewing assignments done for class. My teacher actually ended up just letting me use her jumpsuit as one of my projects to turn in.
Okay.
So that kind of like took some of the weight off that, but it was actually really exciting. The main thing that I was excited about was because most of the stuff that I was working on was either like stuff for me, stuff for my family. So just to like be able to make something for somebody who wasn't related to me that I knew would really like give me good feedback about the product they were getting. Because, you know, your family, they're going to tell you, but they're going to, you know, they're going to sugarcoat, they're going to be nice about it.
Right.
But I was really excited to finally just get like some feedback from somebody who wasn't family or my teacher. Because, you know, teachers don't really count either. They're grading it.
Right.
And then she was actually like a plus size girl. So I was, instead of making something for me, I was able to make something for somebody who was a different size than me. So that gave me a little bit more experience with like working with different body types and stuff. Because even when we would do assignments for class, once I got to like my more advanced part of like my classes, our teachers suggested us using like smaller models just because like the time frame of we have a semester to get 5 garments done. You know, if you're using a smaller model, it's going to take you less time to get everything done and things like that. So it was just really good to step out of my comfort zone of doing like clothes for smaller girls.
Okay. Now, how about were you afraid like of the critique from her?
No, I love feedback.
Okay.
So like whether it's good or bad, I feel like any feedback that somebody can give me is what I can use to grow my brand and make things better. Because if everything that everybody's telling me is positive, then I'm never really gonna grow in my skill set.
That's a good point. Okay.
So I would rather somebody like give me a critique like, oh, I didn't like this about what you made or something like that, so that I can take that into account and like use it the next time I'm making something. And that's not to say that like anything is necessarily wrong, but just hearing like, I would have preferred that you did this with the garment or things like that, like it's actually really helpful.
Okay. So we moved past that point, and now you've first garment made, full client. How do you progress from this point?
From there, I really just started making sure that I was really involved with being a designer in like on-campus events. Because one of my teachers, she was part of the Alabama Fashion Alliance.
Okay.
So she would make sure that our show for our junior/senior class, depending on when you take it, our like advanced sewing class, she made sure that our stuff was part of like Alabama Fashion Week and things like that. So we all got like great exposure to just meeting people in the industry in the area that we're at. And a lot of the people that she worked with, they do like New York Fashion Week, LA Fashion Week, things like that. So we actually were able to get really well connected while we were still in school. I actually got to intern for Dion Harold, who was a semifinalist on Project Runway. So that was a really great experience. And just from there, I just continued to try to market myself to people in the Huntsville area. That's where my school was at.
Okay.
People on campus, of course, like once homecoming, spring week comes around, just like doing people's outfits for that. by the time my senior year came around, I made a couple of my friends like graduation picture outfits, things like that.
Okay.
Doing fashion shows when I was home for the summer, just trying to continuously get my brand out there.
Now, talk about the internship, like with Dion. Like, there are so many people who are just, I'm trying to be nice. There are so many people who don't understand the hustle and the grind of getting something off the ground. And they don't understand that part of the process where you have to put in like a lot of hours with hardly any return.
Right.
Talk about that time with the internship.
I did my internship my junior year of college. So I interned with Dion Harold. Like I said, she was a Project Runway semifinalist. So I was essentially helping her with her collections for like Small Boutique Fashion Week, helping her with her custom pieces. It was, no, I'm sorry, senior year. Yeah, it was my senior year I did my internship.
Okay.
So it was a little stressful just because it was my senior year, so I'm trying to finish up my classes. At that time, I was working at Belk, so I was class, internship, work. For like the whole last semester of school.
And this was unpaid internship.
Yeah,
right?
and it was an unpaid internship.
Right.
But it was really great experience. I learned a lot from her as far as just like simple tricks to like get things done faster. Like for example, if it's a sample garment of something that I'm making, she has 2 sewing machines. So now because of her, I have 2 sewing machines, 2 sergers at my house.
Okay.
So she has 1 sewing machine that she keeps white thread on, 1 sewing machine that she keeps black thread on. Because if it's a sample garment, then your thread does not necessarily have to match because it's a sample piece.
Okay.
So if it was a dark colored fabric, she used black thread on it. If it's a light colored fabric, she used white thread on it. Just so she wasn't constantly having to like change the thread on everything.
Does it take a while to change thread on the sewing machine?
It's not that it takes a while, but like say I'm doing something that has like 4 different color fabrics in it, then I'm like constantly switching the thread out.
Got you.
Every time I'm switching to a different part of the garment. So when it's like sample pieces like that, I just stick to black fabric, white fabric. And then once I'm making the actual garment for somebody, then of course I'll use like the color that matches. But this way, like your sewing machines are always threaded and ready to go. Another trick I got from her is putting like elastic bands in your sample garments when you're doing like shows and stuff like that. This way you can easily adjust for like different size models. Cause you know, going to different like fashion weeks or doing different shows, you never really know what size your models are going to be until you meet the models, essentially.
Right.
So she used to always put like an elastic band in the back of all of her garments so that she could like either make it smaller, it'll stretch for the model, things like that. So I just learned a lot of really good tips and tricks from her with things like that.
How many hours do you think it was that you were working, like, you know, with her during, like, say, weekly?
So weekly, I was doing 3 days a week, 5 hours a day. So what's that, like 15 hours?
Wow, yeah. 15 hours a week. Was it all in her studio?
Yes. So what I love about her, so what she did, she had a studio in her garage where we worked. And then she also, this is another like really smart thing that she did. She rented a storage space, like a big storage space at like a private storage. And then set up like her desk, her racks, and like an additional sewing machine in the storage room versus trying to go out and rent a studio space until she could really just like afford to constantly have a studio space.
Interesting. So she would do a lot of, so there was electricity in there? Huh. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. So like, and that was where she kept, in the storage space, she also kept any like pieces that were like, I guess, essentially like back stock for her, like that she wasn't using for runway right now or that she wasn't using for shoots. Like all her sample garments she kept in the storage space also.
That's a good idea. Yeah, because space is not
It's not
is
cheap.
not cheap. No, not at all. Not at all. I don't even want to talk about what we pay down here because it's about location too.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, it's crazy. Okay, so past college, let's talk about that. Let's
Okay.
talk about how things continue to grow for you once you got out of school.
So I graduated in 2018. When I graduated, I was working at Belk. I moved back home in June, right after graduation.
Is that here in Atlanta?
Yeah, I moved back home to Atlanta.
Okay,
I'm from
okay,
here.
okay.
So moved back
What
home.
high school you go to?
Collinsville, out in Gwinnett.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, okay. All right, cool, cool.
So I moved back home. I got a job at Forever 21. So I'm actually at Forever 20. I'm still working at Forever 21 now. I'm working in my career field. I do visual merchandising there.
Okay, dope.
So still working in my career field, which is great.
That is great.
And then I came home and started again just like doing shows. I actually hosted my own show in 2019. Yeah, 2019. I was gonna continue to do it, but then pandemic happened, so
Oh yeah, COVID. Yeah.
that put that on hold. I do want to get back to like planning fashion shows and vendor events and pop-up shops and stuff like that, because that is
Okay.
something else that I have a passion for. That's not necessarily something that I want to make money off of. It's just something that I enjoy doing.
It's the passion and the networking.
Yeah,
I
like I
totally
love
understand
networking
that.
with people in my industry and
Yeah.
like being able to create a platform for like other up and coming designers, especially like people coming out of like college that are really just trying to get themselves out there, giving them like a platform to be able to showcase themselves. Because that's what a lot of people did for me, like as I was coming out of school or like in school coming up. So yeah.
So talk about, explain that process a little bit. Like when you come back home to Atlanta, you've been essentially, in another state for 4
years.
So you come back, how do you like get yourself back on the scene, like start to meet people and network with people?
I really just started like getting on Eventbrite, looking for like networking mixers, looking for vendor
Okay.
events and pop-up shops, and just like meeting people, because it was a little hard because again I went to high school in Gwinnett, so that's all the way on the north side.
We know what the north side is about. Shout out to Migos.
So just like getting myself, I guess, like in front of people who are actually into fashion, because out there, it's people out there, but really just like going to the city and like meeting people. Like I said, I did a lot of networking events, pop-up shops, doing shows when I came home. I will say the only thing I didn't like when I was doing vendor events at first, it was a little difficult. Well, I won't even say difficult. It was a little discouraging doing vendor events and stuff at first when I came home, only because everything I do is custom. Everything I do is hand sewn. So, going to vendor events, I was like spending money to do these events, but I wasn't able to like make my money back at the events. The only way that I knew I was gonna like make some money back doing the event is if people then like put in a custom order with me after the pop-up shop or something like that. Which of course doesn't always happen. Of course, people say they love your stuff. They say they're gonna get something, and then you never hear from them again.
Exactly.
So nice. It was a little discouraging at first, but then I just had to remind myself, like, I'm doing these things to get exposure for my brand. Yes, people may not be ordering stuff from me right now, but I'm handing out business cards. People are following me on Instagram. I'm building up my brand. Like, I just got to keep working at it, and then eventually everything will start falling into place. So yeah, it was really just about making sure that I was starting to align myself with the right people that I could build with.
So with the vendor booths though, like, I get what you're saying. That's always hit or miss. It's like, it's bittersweet. It gets you exposure at times if it's a decent event, but like you say, it's like it's not that return. So what would be like, what do you feel would be the biggest alternative to that for those people who don't have that money to get a vendor booth?
I would say the best thing to do is just go out and network. So like if you can't like get a vendor booth right now, or you can't like afford to do shows and stuff right now, go to event. Anytime I go to an event, even if it's not a fashion related event, anytime I go somewhere, I have on at least one piece that I've made.
Okay.
So then when people are like, oh, that's so cute, where'd you get it? Oh, I made it. Give them a card, have them follow me on Instagram. I also learned, I went to a networking like pool party one time, and this guy gave me a really good tip, which is when you're, instead of passing out business cards all the time, because 9 times out of 10 people throw away a business card, or they stick it in their purse or they bag, and then they never look at it again.
About it.
So I airdrop people my contact card, so then my number is saved in their phone already.
What about those of us with Google phones?
I have them go ahead and follow me on Instagram right then, and then give them like a business card, or I'll go ahead and like exchange numbers with them right then and there. I've kind of stopped. I still give people business cards, but I've stopped only giving out a business card. Like I make sure that I get their contact information, make sure they get my contact information. Another good thing I learned at like a little seminar that I went to one time was to follow up like at the end of the day or like the next morning. So like if I meet somebody at a networking event, we follow each other on Instagram or we exchange numbers, I'll send them a text like, hey, you know, it's Princess from such and such event. It was really nice meeting you. Looking forward to connecting with you. Like, don't just give them your information and then not, you know, initiate some type of contact.
Absolutely.
Because they're going to forget about you and you're probably going to forget about them in like a week or so.
That's very important. Like I'm definitely more direct, and I'm probably because I'm an asshole. I know. But I take somebody's phone, pull up my IG, have them follow me, and I send a message to myself from their IG through DM so that we know. Because if you meet a lot of people, you may forget what somebody looks like, what their clothes look like, But I mean, all of these are great tactics to use because when you go into a networking event, the most important thing is making contacts that can be useful to help you grow and things like that. So talk to me about your first event that you did, the one that you put together.
The one that I put together? Okay, so my event that I put together, it was actually a continuation of a show that I started on campus. So it was a Black Wall Street event. I'm very big on like promoting Black businesses and just like us like circulating the Black dollar, especially within our own community. So it was a fashion show and a vendor event for Black owned businesses. Like I said, it started out as a campus event that I was doing. So when I started it on campus, it was to promote the businesses of like my fellow students. Because a little plug, I was Miss Junior. I was on Royal Court my junior year of college.
Okay.
So I was part of SGA. So that was my event for our Royal Week. Was I did the Black Wall Street fashion show, and then I partnered with my department, the modeling troupe on campus, all that stuff, and put together a fashion show and a vendor event that showcased on-campus businesses and then local businesses in the community. So I came home, started planning, and I did it at the new MLK Rec Center. My dad is actually a basketball coach over there, so he was able to like get me the rec center space. And it was, I feel like for my first event coming back home, like I said, at that point, I came home in June. I had the show in February of 2019. So I came home June 2018, had the show February 2019. We filled the rec center room, like all of our seats were full with the audience. I had 15 vendors and 6 designers, including myself and the 2 people who helped me plan the show. And it was a really great event. We had food, so we sold tickets, we had food, and I'd say it was a really successful event. Most of my vendors, when I started trying to plan for the next year, most of my vendors did want to do the show again, which meant that they had a good time. It was, a good experience for them, which is great.
It was positive. Okay.
And just doing that, I made great connections with like other brands, people who do like podcasts. Because of course, like trying to get the show together, I was, going out when I was going to networking events. I was telling people about my show. I literally went to, during All-Star Weekend, I went to like all of the different like events that were going on during All-Star Weekend and just like passed out flyers about my show. I went to like Rashida's store in Phipps Plaza, passed out a flyer to her, gave her my business card. Went to like the celebrity basketball games that they were having during All-Star Weekend, passed out information about my show, all that kind of stuff. Like I was really big on, yes, like posting on social media helps get the event out, but I'm really big on like
the footwork.
Yes. Because social media is only going to do so much. People are going to look at the flyer, they're going to double tap the post, they're going to keep scrolling. They might click the link to get a ticket, they might not. I'm really big on like getting out and putting in the footwork to like talk to people about what you have going on.
And see, that's important. That was going to be my next question. Like, just telling people like what it takes to actually promote an event, to get butts in the seats.
Yes.
Of course, having multiple people in the show, that helps because you have a larger amount of people who are helping to promote. But what you did is amazing. Like you actually went out.
Yes.
Old school in the street. Like I know you may not remember. They may still do it now. You go to the club and you come out as flyers on your car.
They do that at my job.
Oh, God.
I work in the mall, so they constantly like it. I come out of work, go to my car. It's a club flyer sitting on my car.
Oh God. Okay. So yeah, that still goes on. But yeah, you gotta do that. You gotta put the work in. And so those are things that it's like it's not secrets, but it's just little small things that a lot of people just aren't willing to do.
And I'm very big on promoting your stuff. So like what I did, I tried to make like promotion fun for like my models and stuff like that. So like I did like a contest with them, like whoever sold the most tickets, like gave them like a prize, stuff like that. Like just real big on making it where other people want to help promote. Yeah.
And were the models able to make money off of ticket sales as
well? No, they were not able to make money off ticket sales. What I did do for my models, I did a free photo shoot for all my models. So my photographer who did the show, he came in, so they got their pictures from the show, all video from the show. I had my photographer come in. A lot of my models were like new upcoming models who were just kind of getting started with modeling. So I had my photographer come and do headshots and full body shots for them to add to their portfolio, like just their basics for like their comp cards and stuff like that. And then I also made sure that they got the same like swag bags that we gave to the people who bought the VIP guests. I made sure my models got those same swag bags. I made sure my models had food at the show, stuff like that.
So just making them feel. So you're giving up all the secret sauce, man.
You gotta. If you can't compensate your models, you have to make it worth their while because they're putting in just as much like time and work as you are.
Now that show, so that was your first show you did for yourself.
Yes.
But talk about the first one that you did with somebody else. Was that before your show?
Yeah, the very first show that I did that was like outside of school was I did a show during the summer before my junior year of college. So that show was like a overall good experience, but I learned a lot of what not to do from that show.
Was that there or here?
It was here in Atlanta. Yeah, I definitely.
What happened?
So the guy who was doing the show, he's a really cool guy. So, But he wasn't from here. He's from North Carolina.
Uh-oh.
So he was like coming back and forth from North Carolina to here to do like practices and rehearsals. I think it was also his first time putting a show together, so he didn't really know like what to do per se. Like the day of the show, he was paying like one of our hairstylists, but everybody else was there as volunteers. So then like, of course, the other hair and makeup people found out like, oh, this one girl's getting paid and we're volunteering. So then they was like, well, we're finna just stop.
Ooh.
So until something gets figured out. But then he still hadn't even arrived from North Carolina the day of the show. Like I'm literally like in charge of everything that's going on. This is not even my show.
Okay.
And then like just making sure everybody is taken care of and everybody is on one accord. Like he wasn't really handling that aspect of everything.
Okay. Wow. So how are things now? Like you got some shows under your belt. Some for you, some for other entities. You just did Streetwear Fashion Week recently. How are things for you now, just from a brand perspective?
I feel like I'm really in the era of my brand where I'm like really, really starting to see all of my work pay off.
Okay.
I just did a collaboration with Shein. Yes, that's what these are.
Okay.
This and my trench coat and all that is from my collaboration with Shein.
Okay.
So all this stuff is actually, I designed everything. Shein handled the manufacturing, sample making, and they're handling distribution, of course, because it's on their website. And then I make a commission off of the sales.
For those who don't know, talk more about Shein.
Shein, Shein is an online website. They do women's wear, kids, men's, all that good stuff.
Okay.
So I was actually really excited when I did this collaboration. Yeah, it was like one of the most exciting because they actually reached out to me. They have a designer program that you can apply for, but they actually reached out to me. I didn't have to apply for the program. So when they reached out to me, I was just like super excited because I was like, okay, somebody's seeing my stuff. I'm going to do LA Fashion Week next month.
Nice. Okay.
So like I said, I just feel like right now is the time where a lot of people are reaching out to me to do shows and to do collaborations and things like that. I'm not really having to go out and find events for my brand.
That's cool.
So
that's when you make
it's making me really excited.
Big time right now. You big time right now.
Yes.
Talk about streetwear. Like I like to use the term. I just started using the term contemporary fashion. Okay. Because like when you say streetwear, a lot of people just like to put it into a specific box. But just talk about how you feel about just streetwear and then just fashion as a whole and where you feel that you fall in between that.
So as far as like where I feel like I fall, I've always, my mentor, which was Dion, when we were kind of like trying to come up with the aesthetic for my brand, she coined the term urban glam for me. Okay. So I kind of do like streetwear styles, like streetwear silhouettes, but then I always try to add like some sort of like high fashion chicness to the streetwear. So like we've got this trench coat that has like the lacing on the bottom of it. Or I love, like me, I'm a glitz and glamour type of girl, but I do love the like urban fashion. So like I'm always adding pearls, I'm adding rhinestones, glitter, fringe, things like that. Just to
making your own most.
Just to give it a little
Okay, cool. Well, I definitely thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
We definitely look forward to seeing more of your stuff. And I will be sure to, I think we're definitely going to collaborate on some stuff in the future.
Yes.
I look forward to that. So I definitely thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me.